Hey everyone, how's it going? The official Pokemon games aren't exactly known for their difficulty. This is why people like me and Nuzlockers and all sorts of challenge players have attempted to layer on additional arbitrary rules to make these games, well, less super easy. But there is a game that genuinely is kind of difficult, at least relatively speaking when it comes to Pokemon. Heck, even Smallant agrees it is the hardest official Pokemon game of all time. And this is definitely, at least in terms of an RPG-style game, 100% accurate in my opinion. For those of you who've never played Colosseum, you should. It's a great, great game. It's one of my favorite games. In fact, I would say it's probably my second favorite game in the entire Pokemon series. It's really, really good. At its core, it is still a Pokemon game, but you don't battle gyms in Elite Four. It's story-based, and all the battles are double battles, and there's no wild Pokemon. The way you catch Pokemon in this game is, well, for us, don't worry about it, we don't catch Pokemon in this game. Because I'm going to do something truly absurd and beat this incredibly difficult game where you're supposed to use a bunch of Pokemon, including legendary Pokemon and items in battle, and just say, not for me. That's right, we're doing a Colosseum solo run. Every battle, except for the very first battle, we will be using just one Pokemon, and our opponents will always be using at the very least two. Well, at least until we can knock all of them out except for one, but you know what I mean. So which Pokemon am I going to go with? Well, there's actually a few options, but for our first Colosseum solo run, I decided to go with one of your starter Pokemon, Espeon. Now, Espeon has some really good stats. It's very fast, it hits very hard, and it knows Psychic, which is a very strong move. The downside is Espeon cannot hit two of my opponent's Pokemon at once. It doesn't have something like Surf or Earthquake, which would be super useful 1v2. The other thing about Espeon is it doesn't have a very diverse moveset, which is going to be a problem when inevitably we encounter Dark Pokemon. The best we have right now is Return, which we get right off the bat. That's kind of cool. But yeah, that could be a bit of an issue for a Pokemon not known for physical attacks that's going to be 1v2. So I don't know if this is even going to be possible. We might have to level up a ton, but I think this is going to be kind of fun, and if you guys like it, I'll do more runs with other Pokemon in Colosseum. So let's get started right away. But first, I want to give a big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. Right around now, a lot of us are going to be traveling through airports, staying at hotels, having a great old time. Unfortunately, there's no way of knowing if the public Wi-Fi you're going to use is compromised. That's where Surfshark steps in. One of the easiest ways to protect your information while using a public Wi-Fi is by encrypting it by using a VPN like Surfshark. And even if you don't use public Wi-Fi, you still get the peace of mind of having your online activities secure and private. And VPNs aren't the only product Surfshark offers. For example, if you would like to know if your email or credit card has been compromised or would like to receive alert in case it potentially has, well then Surfshark Alert might be the product for you. Well, if you want to try out Surfshark, then you can click the link in the description or go to surfshark.com/JRose and you'll get an extra 4 months of Surfshark. They also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have all the time to experience the many benefits that Surfshark offers. Alright, now I'm going to say right now, this video is not going to be a comprehensive review of Colosseum, but I will touch on the major plot points since that's what I do in all these games. But like I said, this isn't the same format you're used to. The big thing about Colosseum, I referred to this earlier, is that, well, you can see now the Croconaw has a weird aura. This is known as a shadow Pokemon. The way you acquire Pokemon in this game, other than Espeon and Umbreon and a Plusle, is by catching these Pokemon. Now, since we're doing a solo run, catching Pokemon would be bad, because then we would have two Pokemon and it wouldn't be a solo run. So for the most part, I'm not going to be catching the shadow Pokemon, which, as you're going to see, is going to make things pretty difficult, because at this point of the game, my Espeon is actually under-leveled. There's a really good reason for this and why doing a run with Croconaw would be a nightmare. Shadow Pokemon, it's kind of a weird mechanic. They don't level up until later in the game. You need to purify them, open their heart. It's very anime. What's relevant for us is that in the beginning of the game, the shadow Pokemon need to be a decent enough level so that you can use them up until about 25% of the way through when you get the ability to purify them, and then they gain all their experience at once, which is super cool. But for now, yeah, Espeon's having a really rough time. So at this point of the game, we need to leave Phoenix City and go to Pyrite, but there are 3 trainers blocking our path. We only need to beat one of them, and this essentially is your choice of Johto starter: Croconaw, Quilava, or Bayleaf. Now, which one I needed to beat, I didn't really know. All 3 trainers have a Grimer and a Spoink, and it specifically was that Spoink that was giving me a lot of issues. I could knock out the Grimer in one hit, but the Quilava was really difficult. Plus, with Flame Wheel, it could burn me. And this video is going to take a long time, so I'm going to kind of make a long story short and say that I spent quite a long time battling these 3 trainers. Like a really long time. I tried battling all of them over and over again, and when you lose in Colosseum, although you can't save anywhere you want, so you go back to your last save point, you do, unlike other RPGs, keep your progress. Which is good because we were able to level up just enough and gain enough friendship that you can see how much Return now does to Spoink. And Spoink's Psywave, I know Psywave is such a bad move in Gen 1, it's way better in Gen 3, and between that and Quilava, it was pretty tough. But by raising our special defense, Quilava prefers Dig over Flame Wheel, meaning I wasn't getting burned, and although I needed a little bit of confusion luck, it took 11 minutes, but we did finally beat Rosso. Now, if I just went and threw balls at Quilava, this would have been a lot easier, and that's precisely why we're going to try to avoid catching Pokemon. I do want to not cheese this challenge. So now we've made it to Pyrite City, which is a city of outlaws and shadow Pokemon trainers. Not every trainer in the game has shadow Pokemon. You can look up a list. I think there's 40 or so. 48, actually. I know that offhand. I love this game. But we're going to be leveling up a little bit. The way this game works is that there are 4 bosses and then a final dungeon, so to speak. And the first one is here in Pyrite Town, Miror B, whose theme is really iconic. But since I had so much trouble with Rosso and Bluno and the green guy, I decided to level up by beating up on these trainers with poison Pokemon. I mean, they rebattle you again and again and again, so it's a pretty easy way to gain some experience points. I should also mention there's a lot of optional content I'm going to be skipping, just because we're not necessarily going to need it and we're not going to be catching Pokemon. But before we can enter the first dungeon, so to speak, Miror B's hideout, we actually have to go through one of the many Colosseums. Hey, from Pokemon Colosseum. This one in Pyrite we can access really early on, and essentially you just have to beat 4 trainers in a row. You do get healed between battles, at least for now, and this Colosseum is the only one that's mandatory to progress in the story. For the record, this battle, if we just fast forward a little bit, I lost. So what I do is level up just a little bit more. I'm not going to show it because there's really no need. These aren't super difficult battles, but Espeon's confusion just isn't doing enough. And so basically I just have to get to level 37 and then I have Psybeam, which is a bit of a bump over Psychic. And now we've entered Miror B's lair. We just have to beat a whole bunch of trainers in a row. If we lose, it sucks because you go all the way back down to the bottom because you can't save anywhere, but not a big deal. And thankfully, there aren't any dark Pokemon that we have to face yet. But like villain teams in the standard Pokemon series, there's just a lot of trainers we need to battle. So we're about 2 hours into the game, and I should mention I'm playing this on a GameCube, well actually a Wii. So this is being played in real time, no edits, no emulator, nothing like that. And Firma was another trainer I really struggled with. You can see how many trainers I battled because I'm all the way at level 41. For the record, this game isn't super well balanced for 1v2, since, you know, you're not supposed to do that. But Firma was pretty tough because Firma has a Mantine, or Mantine, I don't know how you like to pronounce it, but it just is bulky enough, and you can kind of see what can happen is, as we speed up here, Espeon can just kind of get bullied. And without the ability to knock out one of the Pokemon quickly, it's just a pure 2v1. The walk back, by the way, is about 1.5 minutes, so that's part of where this game gets a little frustrating. The strategy in this and every battle is to pick off the weakest Pokemon. I can knock out Aipom with a single Psybeam, so now, effectively, it's 1v1, right? It's Mantine, well, technically, Espeon can't attack it, but you know what I mean? And so I knock out Furret, that's fine. I even knock out Yanma one hit, but the issue is Mantine does enough while I knock out these 3 other Pokemon that I just don't have enough HP remaining. Now, part of what makes Colosseum so difficult, both for a solo run and generally, is you don't have the same kind of options you would have in a traditional Pokemon game. There aren't held items everywhere you can buy. There aren't TMs available. Well, there's some, but not many. And so, unfortunately, when it comes to this battle and some of the other ones, it's just, well, have you leveled up enough? Trust me, even that will only get us so far, but it's what we need to do here. This battle took over 10 minutes, now a lot of that was walking, to actually win. I believe it was 4 or 5 attempts. But you can see that Espeon is slowly but surely gaining some levels, gaining special defense, and thus able to withstand those bubble beams a bit better. And this wasn't even a trainer with a dark Pokemon. Thankfully, we don't really have to deal with that in Miror B's hideout, so that's great. But we are going to have to make a bit of a choice, and I opted to choose what was better for Espeon here. See, I said I didn't really want to catch anything because it could cheese the challenge, but after thinking about it, I decided that I would snag this Meditite. So you can see how that works. You just weaken it like any other Pokemon and then throw any kind of Pokeball at it. That's kind of the way it works. This Meditite will never appear in battle because the battle will immediately end. So you can see there is just still Espeon, the only Pokemon I'm using. But now I have to go back to the PC and deposit it. Why did I catch this Meditite? Because it has the Twisted Spoon, and I feel like the slight damage increase from the Twisted Spoon will make a pretty big difference. And spoiler alert, it does. Now this dungeon, I'm going to keep calling it that, has the most amount of optional trainers. And if you're trying to do a 48 snag, it's easy to catch them here, although you can actually catch every single Pokemon in the post game. But I decided to do it for experience points. And now I'm going to battle the grooviest boss in history, Miror B and his Ludicolo. But I want you to see when Espeon comes out, it's at level 47. While we were struggling at the beginning because we were underleveled, battling all these trainers, even though I do this in every playthrough, we're overleveled. Recall, like I said, Shadow Pokemon don't gain experience points right away, so the game has to balance accordingly for that. If the Ludicolo were level 40, even though Espeon and Umbreon may have been fine, the Shadow Crocodile, for example, or the Shadow Skiploom, those would just be, well, I mean, it's a Skiploom, it's gonna suck anyway, but they'd be horribly outmatched. We also now have our final move, Psychic. Psychic is really good with Twisted Spoon, and so even though these Ludicolo have really good special defense, I one-shot every one of them and have what shocked me to be a very anticlimactic easy battle versus Miror B. I will tell you right now, if you're expecting the rest of the game to go like this, well, yeah, well, just keep watching. All right, so first things first, we have to do more story plot stuff. You can see we have this girl following us around. She, by the way, is the worst. She doesn't talk like Navi, but she gets in your way, like physically gets in your way. I don't understand why they gave the model Collision. It's irritating as hell. But anyway, this is where grandparents live, and this is the city where, or town, it's not a city, but this is where eventually you're going to be able to purify Pokemon. Not yet, but eventually this is where you would go. We don't really need to care about that, but you know now. I believe this Carvanha is our first dark Pokemon, and it looked pretty scary, but also it's a Carvanha, and you know, these things aren't exactly known to be super bulky. It's a good time also to point out that at this point in the game, we are mostly, except for Miror B, battling pre-evolved or middle evolution Pokemon. That is also going to change very, very quickly, but it's part of the reason getting through Miror B's hideout was so easy. Skipping ahead a little bit, we're already in the second dungeon, Mount Battle. Now, Mount Battle, we could talk a lot about, but for our purposes, what we need to do is just the first 10 battles, not even the regular first 10 battles, and they don't need to be done consecutively. If you lose, you just go back like any other Pokemon game. But yeah, this is my least favorite quote-unquote dungeon. It's very boring. I mean, even just the view isn't very interesting. And the battles are, for the most part, very easy, but not entirely. This is Cipher Peon Baron. And yes, all their names are really weird. He has a couple Geodude, and he has a Sandslash. What an easy team. Oh. Oh, wait. That's a thing it can do. So yeah, remember how in Gen 1, self-destruct is super bad and we want to avoid it at all costs? Yeah, self-destruct and explosion are super bad and we want to avoid them at all costs. And spoiler, we won't be able to. And so we're gonna get really annoying battles like this where unless we predict it, we're not going to be able to do, even if we do predict it, we're not always going to be able to do something. But I don't know if, Sean, you can go back and show my facial expression when that happened. But yeah, that was how I was feeling. After losing one more time than beating Baron, I'm able to battle the second boss, Cipher admin Dakim, or Dakim. I don't know. He just looks ridiculous. He has one of the scariest Pokemon, or at least what would become one, Metang and a Golem. Now, I have Espeon with psychic moves, and you can see they don't heal you between battles. As you're going to see, Dakim's team has a specific strategy in mind, an Earthquake Protect strategy. This is part of the other reason why this game is genuinely considered difficult. The AI actually uses double battle strategies. Now, I had a 50-50 shot what was going to use Protect first, and I guessed wrong, but also I'm not going to do very much damage to him at tank. When I do hit the Psychic, I knock out Golem, and now out comes Marshtomp. Now, if I properly looked at the team list, I would have seen that Marshtomp doesn't actually know Protect, so I should have attacked it, but instead, I decide like a complete fool to attack Metang, and then Metang used Earthquake, which doesn't really help because I'd one-shot Marshtomp anyway, and then Marshtomp goes for Mud Shot, which lowers my speed. Now, Espeon does by now get Morning Sun, which is a way to restore health. Unfortunately, the onslaught of Marshtomp plus Metang ended up proving a little bit too much for me. We're going to have to fast forward a bit, but eventually Dakim is going to get to his ace Pokemon, Shadow Entei, a level 40 Shadow Entei, and Entei plus Metang just was too much, and although I made some really good progress, and in fact the Earthquake knocked out Entei as well, I lost, which kinda sucks. And honestly, the reason I didn't go in detail is that the losing play was not one-shotting the Marshtomp when I had the chance, and forgetting or not realizing it didn't know Protect. So now we're going to battle Dakim again, and I wasn't sure whether the first Protect was random or whether it was predetermined. Seems like, well, it's hard to tell, but I try to knock out the Golem again, I fail again, but that's okay. This time, I realize Marshtomp doesn't have Protect and knock it out. Also, I level up, which is pretty good. Now out comes Camerupt. Metang hasn't attacked yet, so it's going to go for Earthquake, but Metang is not ground type, and it doesn't do that much damage. At least not to me. It did a lot of damage to Camerupt, and I was kind of hoping it would knock it out, and then I could just attack Metang. Unfortunately, although both Pokemon have Protect, it was Metang that used it, so I get hit by Earthquake with Camerupt, and that was really bad. But it's not the end of the world. We can use Morning Sun here and get back most of our HP, and now it's pretty much just a choice of who we want to knock out. I don't have that many power points of Psychic, so I'm just going to go Psybeam, and now out comes Entei. I'm just going to go and knock out Entei because I know it doesn't have... Oh, never mind. I'm not going to knock out Entei. And it's going to go for Fire Blast, which does quite a bit, and it burns me. But Metang kind of helps me out, going for Earthquake. Still doesn't do that much damage, but it does knock out Entei, and after using Morning Sun, a few times actually, I can slowly but surely whittle down Metang's health, and even though I'm dealing with a move that is double resisted, I was just barely able to beat Metang with 22 HP to spare. So thank goodness we have Morning Sun, not a move typically I would want to use in a 1v2 scenario, but it did help me beat the second boss, Dakim, or Dakim, or whatever, who cares? After beating him, however you say his name, there's a bunch more plot stuff to do, but we're eventually going to go to a place in the game, a really cool place under Pyrite, called The Under. And we're also going to be able to buy some TMs, including Protect and Hidden Power. Now, I don't know what Hidden Power type I had, so I just battled the first trainer I saw, not knowing it was Gurks. First off, freaking Gurks? I mean, and he has a Magikarp and Feebas. I'm going to be real with you guys. I could not imagine a more fitting team for a guy named Gurks. Anywho, it did neutral damage and didn't knock out Magikarp, which told me that it very likely, although it did knock out Feebas, but it very likely was a physical type attack that wasn't steel. Unfortunately, since frickin' Gurks only has mono water Pokemon, that was all I was able to determine. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to use Hidden Power because I deleted Return, which I may need for Dark Pokemon. So I use Hidden Power versus Skitty. And, well, it's super effective. And that means it can only be, look at my facial expression, it can only be Hidden Power fighting. Now, you can see that eyebrow raise because I start to realize, that could work. But I'd much rather something like Hidden Power Grass or Hidden Power Water, taking advantage of my special. And I don't even know, even at this point, what the base power, because it's variable at this point. So Hidden Power Fighting is a bit of a blessing. It's going to give us a good type matchup against Dark type. And I didn't do any sort of manipulation. I didn't do any kind of resetting. I don't even know how good my Espeon is. I'm actually very curious about that, to be honest with you. With that said, it's interesting enough that I'm just going to keep it around just in case. And so it looks like going forward, we're going to have Psybeam, Psychic, Hidden Power, and Morning Sun, Protect? Question mark? Now, one really interesting thing that Pokemon Colosseum does is the 3rd and 4th dungeons really connect, but moreover, you actually battle Venus before you access the so-called 3rd dungeon, at least called by me. Venus sucks, and I don't mean she's bad at battling. I mean, if you remember battling Koga in Pokemon Stadium 2, get ready for this garbage. So all of Venus's Pokemon pretty much have Attract. And Espeon being male means if there's a female Pokemon out there with Attract, I now have a 50-50 chance of just not attacking. Now, if I do attack and knock out the Pokemon, which I don't there, Attract goes away. It's not like Confusion. But in this battle, that doesn't happen, and she has a Banette, and Shadow Ball's a physical attack, and I'm an Espeon, and that was a pretty quick loss. Something interesting I haven't mentioned yet is that the initial loadout is different from subsequent loadouts. Sometimes every subsequent loadout after the first is the same. Sometimes they're different. It's really interesting. But this time it's Delcatty and Steelix. Now, Steelix is a scary Pokemon being, Steel type, but it's also male, so it can't use Attract. So that's really good. We knock out the Delcatty, out comes Banette, and the Steelix goes for Taunt, which doesn't actually work properly. It's supposed to last for 2 turns, but I think it counts like when the opponent acts as a turn. It's very strange. Anywho, we're just going to knock out the Banette before it can do any damage. And the Steelix is actually proving to be kind of useful. Because although it can, well, actually less useful after that Earthquake, but it'll at least damage Vileplume, which doesn't actually do much of anything to me. I'd love to heal here, but I can't because Vileplume will just go for Attract. So I knock it out with a Psybeam, out comes Suicune, and Taunt is good. Now I'm hoping that Suicune, even though it's bulkier, will be one-shot. It's not, and then it goes for Surf. Now, if you're used to later games, Surf would hit every Pokemon, but in Generation 3 only, it only hits my side. And then Steelix goes for Earthquake, which hopefully, it doesn't knock me out, but it will in fact knock out the Suicune, and we get exactly what I like, a 1v1. So I'm gonna go for Morning Sun, the Steelix goes for Earthquake, another Morning Sun, another Earthquake, another Morning Sun, another Earthquake, but I have a little bit of leeway here to go for some Psychics, or at least one Psychic actually, and I get a crit. That works. That works, that works, that works. So it took a couple attempts, and she had a pretty good strategy to beat a single Pokemon. But that's 3 bosses down, a few more to go. Alright, so there's a bunch more trainers, a bunch more battles, but no other admins or bosses. So half an hour later, we're in the semi-final dungeon area, the Cipher lab. There are a lot of trainers to battle here, and even a little puzzle you need to solve. A literal puzzle, actually. But we are heading towards the end of the game. One trainer that did provide some difficulty, though, is Researcher Odlow. These researchers tend to have Electrode, Magnemite, and Magneton, and the problem is they can do quite a bit of damage to me and paralyze me. Even though we can synchronize the paralysis in Generation 3, they just use Thunder, and them being Steel type is not great. I did win, it didn't take that long. Eventually, I just do enough damage to one-shot, but yeah, Steel Pokemon, not great for me. Foreshadowing. Half hour later, I finally made it to the second last room of the dungeon, and this guy we've actually fought earlier in the game. His name is Scrub. Now, his Shadow Pokemon is a Hitmontop, and as you'll see, the Hitmontop is going to be kind of underleveled because it was supposed to be snagged and replaced with a different Pokemon. But if it's not snagged, unlike all his other Pokemon that gain levels, the Hitmontop won't. So we knock out Graveler, out comes Clamperl. Hitmontop does basically nothing. We knock out Hitmontop. Clamperl goes for Iron Defense, we knock it out. But I decide to go for Psychic against Wobbuffet, hoping it would one-shot, and it doesn't. And so, what was previously a why not and could be one-shot, does that. Wobbuffet is not a great Pokemon for an Espeon. So how am I going to knock out this Wobbuffet? Well, thankfully, the AI is smart, but not smart enough. I go for Hidden Power Fighting. Now, Wobbuffet went for Mirror Coat now, but it's going to anticipate for whatever reason I'm going to do the same thing again. I was actually worried it wouldn't work like that, but as I can see, it clearly does work like that. So if I just alternate physical, thank goodness I have a physical move. Holy mackerel, can you imagine if I had Hidden Power Grass? That would have been a nightmare, but thankfully that didn't end up happening. Even with the clutch confusion, we knocked out Wobbuffet, and we've made it to Ein, the final, well, not actually the final boss, but the final of the big four bosses. So while Venus loved Attract, Ein loves Toxic and Confusion. What a truly great game this is. I mean, I do love it, but these are the classic troll strategies that would work really well in a competitive battle that typically trainers don't take advantage of, but these ones do. So I go to knock out the Golbat, but then Huntail sets up Rain Dance. Now this Huntail has Swift Swim, so now it's pretty darn fast. I try to go for Psychic against Altaria. It works, and I'm still outspeeding Huntail, but I kinda didn't think about the fact it had Confuse Ray, and now at this point, I'm confused. 50-50 chance. Uh-oh. And this is actually a really big uh-oh, because not only do I not attack, it's now a 2-on-0, essentially. It's like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Equivalent of attacking your life points directly. And since it's raining, even if I get to use something like Morning Sun, which I do because I wasn't thinking, it doesn't heal as much because it's in the rain, and so Espeon is in a lot of pain. And the next loadout we get from Ein is pretty terrible because both these Pokemon can confuse. I'm gonna knock out Huntail first because I don't want to see Rain Dance, but then I realized maybe Rain Dance wasn't actually so bad. I was thinking about the damage and the Morning Sun, but now I'm confused. Unfortunately for Ein, I don't hit myself in confusion. I knock out Lantern, which is massive. Golbat also doesn't go for Toxic, which is massive. I do hit myself in confusion and then get hit by Wing Attack and Pursuit, but neither attack does that much. I go for Morning Sun. It doesn't work because I'm confused, and I get pretty close, 17 HP, but then Morning Sun comes out. I'm not confused anymore. I knock out the Golbat. Out comes Raikou. Altaria goes for Ice Beam, and are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me? Well, we had it. In our third battle, it's Lantern and Golbat, and this time it really doesn't matter what I knock out, but I decided to knock out Golbat because I kind of thought maybe Rain Dance wouldn't be as bad, at least I'm not confused, but it didn't really work out that way because Huntail was the next Pokemon, and I had no way of knowing that. It could have been Altaria, so I'm confused anyway, and it was raining, but at least I'm able to attack the Huntail. Raikou comes out, and it does have Thunder, which will always hit because I'm in the rain, but unfortunately for Ein, I don't hit myself in confusion, and this time the Altaria doesn't freeze me, and so without terrible RNG, or even bad RNG, we win pretty easily. And that is pretty much most of the game. There is only one more area where we have to go. Unfortunately, it's the hardest area of the entire game and involves rebattling all 4 of these bosses, now with better teams. Goody! You can rebattle the bosses in any order. They each have a key. You need all 4 keys to get to the final section of the game. So we're going to battle Dakim, I don't know. But this time he has got a Claydol and a Fortress. We don't have a great type matchup against either of these guys. And I actually forgot to heal, which is even greater. Once again, Dakim is going for a classic Protect Earthquake strat. And sadly, like always, I guess wrong. But Claydol makes this even better because Claydol, well, actually that didn't do very much, but Claydol doesn't actually need to use Protect because it just levitates. We do nearly one-shot Fortress, which is pretty good. And then Claydol goes for Sunny Day, which is actually really good because just like Rain Dance decreases the amount we get via Morning Sun, Sunny Day increases it. I mean, I'll just show you. There I get all my HP back. Pretty good stuff. So we're at 119. I can knock out Fortress and out comes Flygon. Claydol then decides to go for Solar Beam, which does next to nothing. I mean, Claydol's just not a very powerful attacking Pokemon. Psychic one-shots Flygon, which is pretty good. Claydol goes for Earthquake, which hits it and now Whiscash. We're going to go for Morning Sun, and good thing we did. Whiscash went for Protect. And then the sunlight fades, we knock out Whiscash. Entei comes out. Now, if we had snagged Entei, this would have been a Houndoom, which would have been manageable, but worse, especially with Sunny Day. It also would have been level 47, so in a way, not snagging Pokemon, while it makes the first battle more difficult, it actually makes the second battle slightly easier. But Dakim, even though he provided a little bit of challenge the first time around, this time we are able to beat him first try, so that's 1 out of 4 down. Yay! After healing, I then battle Miror B, who's got his Ludicolo's, and it's going to be pretty much the exact same as last time. He does have a Golduck, so that's a little different, and a Loudred, but neither of them really do all that much. And that Pseudo-Wudo that was not really scary the first time is especially not very scary now at level 45. And so we quickly beat Miror B, leaving just 2 to go. Alrighty, so now we have to rebattle Ein. Other than Raikou, he's got a completely different team and a different team concept. This is a Toxic Protect concept. Only 2 of his 5 Pokemon have it, but if I had snagged Raikou, there would be a Manectric at level 50 and it would have it as well. You can also see these are higher level than Miror B's Pokemon. Now, sadly, once again, I lose the Protect Lottery and Rain Dance is very bad. This time, I'll knock out Rhydon. Pelipper goes for Surf, and with the Rain Dance, it actually does quite a lot of damage to me, which is not very good. I then go for Psychic against Starmie, hoping I'll knock it out, but it resists. But I knew if Starmie were able to attack, it would pretty much decimate my HP. And yeah, very quickly, Ein gets a victory here. Not good. Not good. Losing the Protect Roulette really hurt. Having learned from my previous experiences in the game, I just figured Rhydon was going to go for it, so I knock out Pelipper, meaning no Rain Dance. Now Starmie comes out, and I am actually going to attack Starmie, even though that's going to leave Rhydon, because I'm not really sure what Rhydon is going to do here. Starmie goes for Rain Dance, this I expected, and Rhydon goes for Toxic, which is what Ein is trying to do. Thankfully, it misses, which is very good, and Starmie doesn't have a way to protect itself, so we can knock out the Starmie. Out comes a Crobat, but unfortunately Crobat protects, and this time Toxic is going to hit. And although we can synchronize it, we're not in a great situation. So I know that Rhydon has a Protect remaining. You can't really use it consecutively, and the AI pretty much never will as far as I can tell. So I just go for Psybeam to conserve power points, and I knock out Crobat. Raikou comes out next. I can knock out the Raikou here and now, but I decide to actually knock out Rhydon. Raikou goes for Thunder, and I think we're just going to knock it out with Psychic. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we? I don't even know why I was doubting that that would be a one-shot. It took a couple attempts, but this was definitely a little bit easier than being confused, I'll say that. And our final trainer, oh god, she was so annoying the first time, Venus. She is way worse this time, because although Ein gave up on Confusion strats, she now has Pokemon with Parafusion and Attract, Paratract Fusion. So she leads with Wigglytuff and Blossom. Both have Attract, both are female. I decide to knock out Blossom, and it goes for Body Slam. Of course, 30% chance of paralysis, and we get it. So now we're paralyzed. And although you don't typically think of Raichu as a Pokemon setting up confusion, it gets Sweet Kiss, as a Pichu at least. So now I am Parafused. Soon will probably be Paratract Fused, but it doesn't matter. I just can't do anything, and I just lose rather quickly. I have a feeling this time I'm going to lose a bunch of times. It's just going to be an RNG fest. So the second loadout is Blossom plus Misdreavus. I don't want to face a Misdreavus, but at the same time, I cannot risk being statused, so I'm going to knock out the Blossom. The Misdreavus has Confuse Ray, but it can't use Attract because it's male. But of course, it is going to use Confuse Ray, so I'm confused. I can't be surprised by that. Now, I'd love to attack Raichu, but I don't, and so now I'm Parafused and taunted, not that that really matters. And now it's just a matter of, am I going to attack? Well, the answer is yes, I do knock out the Raichu, but now Wigglytuff is going to outspeed me, and I'm Paratract Fused. So, the comments will correct me if my math is wrong here, but there is a 75% chance to hit through paralysis, and then, wow, I hit through all of it. Okay, continuing the math, divide that by 2, 37.5, because I'm confused, and divide that by 2, well, again there, and it's like 19% chance, but we did it, which is pretty cool. Now it's just 37.5, I think, and thankfully I can't get attracted again, but that doesn't stop the fact that I am still paralyzed, and I'm being hit by everything. I do knock out Suicune. Wait, this could work. Oh no, I'm confused again. And yeah, that's how that's gonna end. Yay! All I can do is battle her again. This time we get Blossom and Raichu. Now this is a bit of a problem because would I rather be paralyzed, which is permanent, or would I rather be attracted, which theoretically I can get rid of just by knocking out a Pokemon? I decide maybe paralyzed works, but as we speed through, you're going to see that it didn't. Being outsped 1v2 is just, it's too hard to overcome, and I decide that we're going to have to change up our strategy a bit. You see, one way I could maybe make this fight a little bit better is if I wasn't paralyzed. But J-Rose, how do you avoid getting paralyzed? That's a really bad, no, it's a good question. Well, there's this guy in Agate Town with the Talo at the very top. And if you talk to him, he's gonna give you a berry. Now, he says once a day, but that's actually not true. If you reset and or reload the area, he'll give you another berry. There's just under a 10% chance he gives you the berry we need, and I actually think resetting is easier. For the record, Pokemon Colosseum does not have a soft reset. XD Gale of Darkness, its sequel, does, so I just have to hit reset. This does mean I'll have less berries for later, but I can't anticipate needing them. Anyway, we get pretty lucky that on my 4th attempt, we get the Cherry Berry. Lumberry would have worked too. And now we can try and battle Venus again. Although, honestly, the Cherry Berry is good because specifically paralysis is the thing I'm most worried about. So it's been 20 minutes of trying to beat Venus. We get Raichu and Blossom again. This is the perfect loadout for having the Cherry Berry. Because now, well, assuming what she does next actually, but now I can knock out Blossom with Psychic, and Misdreavus is perfect. Now, I'm not even paralyzed, although Raichu is. I can knock out Raichu, and while I can't avoid being confused, I'm now less likely to be paralyzed. I've essentially boiled this battle down to this 50-50 hit. If I hit Wigglytuff right here, we should be good. If I don't, we could be in a lot of trouble. And I don't. But as it turns out, Wigglytuff isn't going to go for Attract, it's going to go for Body Slam, and this time it doesn't get paralysis, so we get another 50-50 shot at this, and we hit Wigglytuff, and there goes the battle. At this point, Misdreavus can do barely anything to me, and as soon as we snap out of confusion or hit through the confusion, we'll knock out Suicune, and then Misdreavus, and as it turned out, a frickin' Cherry Berry was all we needed to beat Venus. I didn't even know that berry guy existed, so that's why I love solo runs. I find out new things about games that I never thought I needed to know. But we're really close to the end of the game. Really, really close. Why is there so much more video left? Well, before we can get to the very final area of the game, we have to battle one last person. The guy who, the lore of the game is you escape Team Snag'em. Anyway, Gonzap. Now, Gonzap's team seems like it was specifically built to beating an Espeon. Other than his Hariyama, everything else is very problematic. So he's going to start off with 2 Dark Pokemon, a Shiftry and a Crawdont. But not just any Shiftry and Crawdont. Oh no, a Shiftry that has Shadow Ball, and as good as Hidden Power fighting is in theory, in practice, it doing half is actually pretty good, but Shadow Ball does just about that as well. And then Crawdont, which has great attack, uses Sludge Bomb. I do knock out Shiftry, which is pretty good, but after Sludge Bomb, I have only 18 HP. I can Morning Sun, but Pinsir has great attack too and goes for Earthquake. I'm then hit by another Sludge Bomb, don't get poisoned, so I Morning Sun. Pinsir goes for Flail, which is actually going to do nothing. Maybe this is going to go better than I think. Another Sludge Bomb. This time I'm poisoned. It was bound to happen. 1 in 3 is about the odds of being poisoned. And so my healing just isn't doing enough. And while I'm able to knock out the Crawdont, the Pinsir is going to knock me out. And so maybe I did need that Pecha Berry. I don't know. Yikes. Maybe I should have gotten it. Alright, I'm going to try Gonzap again. This time it's Crawdont and Hariyama. I'm going to try to knock out the Crawdont, but sadly I'm not even doing half. And I get poisoned right away. And so I do actually knock out the Crawdont, which is pretty cool. The Synchronize did help there. I don't knock out a single other Pokemon, meaning no extra EXP. Yeah. So I decide to teach Protect. And there's some PowerPoint ups I can get, so I use those. And now we have a loadout of Crawdont and Pinsir. Considering how much this Pinsir likes to use Earthquake, this is why I used Protect and Perfect. Now we have a Crawdont at half HP, and if Hidden Power knocks it out, I feel like I've done a great job. No more Sludge Bomb, no more worries, and that's good. The Pinsir uses Flail, that's not bad at all. So now I go for Hidden Power against Shiftry, but it doesn't quite do half. Thankfully, Pinsir goes for Earthquake again. Shiftry goes for Shadow Ball. I'm at 51 HP, but I think I can knock out Shiftry and tank an Earthquake. We knock out Shiftry, and Pinsir goes not for Earthquake, but for Submission. That's fine. I'm going to go for Morning Sun. Actually, let's go for Protect. Because if I go for Protect, maybe Pinsir will hit Hariyama, which it does. And then Hariyama hits Pinsir. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to go for Morning Sun. So I have 126 HP. Very good. It goes for Earthquake. Hariyama is now pretty low on HP. Hariyama goes for Earthquake. Now I can go for Protect or I can go for Morning Sun. I'm going to go for... I got to think about this. I'm going to go for Protect. We get Flail and Brick Break. All right, not what I want to see. So it's time for a Morning Sun. And we get Flail. This time it's going to do quite a bit more. And we're going to get... that's not what I want to see. Reversal's quite a bit better. So I have to Morning Sun again. I just need better RNG. And what are we going to get? Flail? Don't want to see that. And all right, well, Brick Break is better. I need to Morning Sun. I need to see Earthquake here. Once again, we get Flail. And again, Hariyama goes for Reversal. This is just really bad for me. I decide, all right, I'm just going to go for Psychic and knock out the Pinsir because it's the more dangerous of the two. And then Gonzap's going to send out Skarmory, which is not a great Pokemon, but it's also not very strong. Hariyama goes for Foresight, and this is when I knew I won. Because we can knock out the Hariyama. The best thing it can do is Steel Wing, and it doesn't do nearly enough. If it crit, I think it would have won. But now we can Morning Sun. Shadow Rush, funny enough, we haven't even shown off Shadow Rush, really. It is a base 70 physical move that is typeless, and it deals back 1/16 of the max HP as recoil. It's a very interesting attack. It's the unique attack of Shadow Pokemon in this game, which we're not going to use, and most of the Pokemon haven't bothered to use it. And even though Skarmory did, it didn't really do all that much because it's a Skarmory, and we have made it to the final gauntlet this game has to offer. And it is a gauntlet. We're going to be going into what's called the Realgam Colosseum. This isn't like an official Colosseum like the one from earlier. We still are going to have to beat at least 4 trainers in a row, but unlike the other Colosseums, we're not going to heal in between. When you have a team of 6 Pokemon, this is fine, but with 1 Pokemon, it's a problem, and unlike the Elite Four, there is no break. There is no chance to heal in between. So we need to do super well throughout every single battle. The first trainer is a bodybuilder named Jomis, and I'm not going to try and pad this out. She's pretty easy. 3 normal Pokemon, they're all one-shot. None of them can do all that much to me. It's a Miltank, a Zangoose, and a Porygon 2. The second trainer is the massive problem here, and that is Rider Dylan, because not only does he have all dark Pokemon, but like with Sidneye in the Elite Four, Mightyena leads off with an Intimidate. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. Thankfully, I have a White Herb equipped. When did you get that, J-Rose? Do you remember those meaningless trainer battles I was talking about why Espeon was good, and you were seeing these battles and may not even remember where they're from? Yeah, that was the pre-gym in Phoenix City, and by beating all 4 of those trainers, I got a White Herb. The good news is we now have our full attacking power, and maybe we'll one-shot? Alright, we'll 2-shot. Absol goes for Swords Dance, Mightyena goes for Crunch, and of course, we get a Spadef drop, which is terrible. I'll knock out the Absol because with Swords Dance, it's very scary. Out comes Sharpedo, another Crunch, and this time it's just doing way too much damage. We can knock out the Sharpedo. Mightyena goes for Crunch and gets a frickin' Spadef drop. And so I just try to go for the clutch crit. I don't win, and so we have to do this all over again. Now, I actually forgot to save before I beat this trainer in front of the healing thing, but normally you would just not bother resetting. Why would you even care about resetting? Well, unfortunately, the White Herb doesn't come back. So if I want to use the White Herb, it's a one-time deal, and I either win or I try again. I opt to try again. As it would turn out, Dylan isn't actually that difficult if you don't get absurd bad luck. We actually got really bad luck against the previous trainer, so we had way less HP, but this time around, we don't get a Spadef drop till right at the end, and so while I'd like to go to the third trainer with more than half HP, beating Dylan is pretty cool. Now we have the third trainer, Nella, who has a Houndoom, which is again a dark Pokemon, but she has non-dark Pokemon like Torkoal, which we can go for Psychic against, and then out comes Macargo. Houndoom goes for Howl, which actually isn't that bad. We knock out Macargo and Howl again, which isn't that bad. Hidden Power does quite a bit, and I expected Shadow Rush. Remember, this is a physical move, and it's now +2. We're gonna have to go for Hidden Power here because Houndoom is gonna do too much damage to get some reliable healing off, which sucks, but the final trainer, Ston, is a Grass trainer. Now, I act really cautiously here, but you can, with Protect, turn this into a 1v1 because Tropius is just going to keep going for Fly against Espeon. I'm going to speed through this because, honestly, I just didn't need to be this careful. Fly does very little. Tropius is not a really great attacker, but it's fine. You know, I was careful. I knocked out every Pokemon, and that's it. We beat the quote-unquote Elite Four. Awesome, right? No, it's Pokemon. You know it's coming. The final trainer. This is Nascour. I mean, doesn't he look like a perfectly not evil... I don't even know what he's supposed to be. I don't really care. But you know what he really was to me? A complete and total pain. So Nascour this time is going to lead with Dusclops and Gardevoir. Now, Gardevoir obviously resists my Psychic moves, and Dusclops is a Ghost Pokemon. I go for Psychic. It almost one-shots. If I had Twisted Spoon, it would one-shot, but since I can't equip items between battles, I can't do that. I get hit with Thunderbolt, it goes for Confuse Ray, and then Nascour uses an X special. I hit myself in Confusion, which means I lost my free turn. I thankfully don't the second turn and knock out Dusclops. But now we have this annoying Gardevoir using Thunderbolt with +1 in special attack. I then go for Psychic against Walrein, but Walrein's fairly bulky. Then we get Thunder. We get Walrein using Attract. Wait, Walrein has Attract? Okay, sure, why not? I mean, I knock it out, and out comes Blaziken, but the battle was over. If I had more HP, sure, but we need to one-shot, at the very least, Dusclops, and maybe even Walrein. What I didn't remember, because I've never actually lost to Nascour before, is what actually happens now? Are the other trainers still defeated? I just couldn't remember. The answer is no. You have to beat all 5 of these trainers in a row, meaning I'm gonna have to reset here. There were a bunch of optional trainers around this area I didn't beat, and I went through the other 4. As you could tell, there really wasn't much RNG, so things are fine. And now we get our test. At level 76, do we one-shot the Walrein? The answer might surprise you. It's no. I mean, better, and then Blaziken goes for Swagger, which is pretty good. But now we're Attract Diffused, and it just doesn't end up going well for me. I don't even make it past the first 2 Pokemon. And it's at this point I realize we're going to need to look at Espeon's move list and maybe go to a different strategy. And if you look at the moves, Calm Mind is great. I wish Calm Mind existed, but unfortunately, that TM isn't in the game. A TM that might be able to help me specifically with Dusclops, especially if I get hit with Swagger, is Shadow Ball. Now, Shadow Ball is available by going to the Under Colosseum, and there are multiple rounds. Thankfully, you don't have to beat each round in a row. You have to beat 4 trainers, then you can lose, then 4 trainers, then you can lose, then 4 trainers. And in theory, I thought this would be a really, really great way to get Shadow Ball, and we try again soon. I ended up getting kinda stuck. So in round 2, the semifinal trainer has a Volbeat and a Grumpig, and it uses Attract Diffusion strategies, which, as has been shown many a times, I don't deal very well with. And so, yeah, combined with the fact that Grumpig is actually quite a bulky Pokemon, I lost to this guy a lot. But wait, it got better, because after you beat him, Chaser Devis uses Evasion Toxic strategies with an exploding Fortress to just, it was terrible. It was terrible. But the one thing you need to understand is that you do gain experience points, as you may have seen from these battles. So even though I'm not getting Shadow Ball, I'm gaining tons and tons and tons and tons of experience points. How many? Well, by the time I finally made it to Battle 12, actually I've made there a few times, we have Street Performer Shuff, which has eventually, as we speed through this, a Perish Song Murkrow. It was so bad, guys. It was so bad. And so finally at level 82, I'm like, you know, I didn't really want to get this over-leveled. I really just wanted Shadow Ball, but like, I've been stuck on this for like 2 hours. I might just win because I'm such a high level. Well, as I battle the 5 trainers again, or at least the 4 plus Nascour, you'll see me going to check that I have the Twisted Spoon equipped, because I'm hoping now at level 86 that even if I may be able to one-shot with Hidden Power Fighting, I'm not really worried about Dellen anymore, because Dellen hadn't been a problem other than getting absurd crunch luck. And now that I have way more special defense, he's even less of a threat. And so I'm easily able to sweep through all 4 of these trainers, and more importantly, do it with Twisted Spoon. And that brings me to Nascour with Twisted Spoon at a much higher level. I think this is going to go differently. He leads with Dusclops and Xatu. Not the best loadout, but manageable. So this time, Psychic is just going to one-shot Dusclops easy. And now out comes Blaziken. The Xatu goes for Confuse Ray, and that was a concern. I'm going to attack Blaziken, and I don't hit myself in Confusion, which is awesome. Now it comes out Gardevoir, it goes for Drill Peck, and Nascour uses the Double X special. Not a bad turn to hit myself in Confusion. And the next turn, I am able to one-shot Xatu with Psychic. The leveling seems to have worked. Gardevoir's Thunderbolt is still annoying, but if I'm not paralyzed, it's fine. And after all this training and the Twisted Spoon, we're going to easily one-shot Walrein. But we haven't even talked about the scariest Pokemon, Metagross. I mentioned Metang earlier when we fought one, but Shadow Metagross is pretty scary. First thing first, let's isolate it. Gardevoir is going to take 2 hits. It goes for Thunderbolt, and Metagross goes for Iron Defense, which is pretty bad because now Psychic is going to do more than Hidden Power, and it's not going to do very much. We use Psychic on Gardevoir, knock it out. It goes for Shadow Rush. Now we're seeing it a bunch. Man, these animations, by the way, take so long. I mean, in 2003 or whatever, they looked amazing, but now, So I'm going to use Morning Sun. I don't have any more PowerPoint up, so we only have 5. It goes for Shadow Rush, and this is going to be really close. Really close. The recoil is starting to stack up a little bit. I'm going to go for Psychic, and I really need this to do decent damage. Oh, that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. In fact, I'm not even going to need to stall this out. We did it. We beat a Metagross with an Espeon using Psychic. And want to hear something awesome? That means the game isn't over. There's one more trainer to go. Yeah, the double fake out. I mean, it wasn't really a fake out. We knew we were going to fight a boss the first time. But Mayor Escade, who I don't think I even showed, is actually Evil Evis, or Evis, or I don't care. But it's at this point, guys, that if we lose, we actually don't have to battle anyone ever again. We can just keep rebattling Evis over and over again. So Evis's team is interesting, and there's a strategy he's going to try to use. He starts off with Machamp and Slowking. So Shadow Ball would have been helpful here. X attack, okay, so like Nascour, he has X items, 1 for each Pokemon, and I want to see if this is going to be a 2-shot. I'm hoping it will be, but it's not going to be. I then go for Protect, hoping we're going to see Earthquake. Unfortunately, Machamp goes for Bulk Up, which is not very good, and Slowking has Shadow Ball, which is also not very good. Now, I decide Machamp is too scary, I'm going to knock it out, but scarier still is Scizor. And not just any Scizor as I'm hit by a Shadow Ball, a Scizor that isn't one-shot by Psychic at my level and gets Swarm Silver Wind, which is a physical move in this game. The Omniboost is just rubbing salt in the wound. And if you thought for half a second that I'd over-leveled and that Evis was going to be easy, you're wrong. Alright, so in our second try versus Evis, we get the worst possible loadout. Salamence and Scizor. Because with Salamence, our attack is lowered. So my original strategy was to use Hidden Power on Scizor and then Psychic. But as you're going to see, it does not enough damage to knock out the Scizor. And with Swarm, 1 Silver Wind knocks out my level 87 Espeon. That was probably the quickest loss I've had in this run so far. Yikes. Oh god. Battle 3, we get to see something kind of fun and interesting. So he has Slacking and Slowking. I go for Psychic on Slowking, which was a mistake, as I'd find out, but that's okay. Slacking goes for Crush Claw. My defense gets lowered. Slowking then goes for Skill Swap. Look at my face. I didn't realize Slowking had Skill Swap, and once I did, I'm like, oh my god, I could have cheesed this so badly. Thankfully, Psychic is actually enough to knock out the now non-truanted Slacking, but it's at this point, we're in a bit of a bind. Double X attack is fine. I go for Protect, because now that Slowking... Oh, I actually screwed up. You see, I thought that the X attack would delay the Truant turn. Instead, you can use items during Truant. I didn't realize that. Scizor goes for Silver Wind, but without Swarm, it does... Well, a lot more than clearly I was expecting. I mean, it was +1, but holy mackerel. Now we're on to Battle 4 versus Evis, and it's interesting that every time we're getting a different loadout. This time, I'm just going to go for Psychic against Machamp, knock it out. Here comes Scizor, Shadow Ball, not a big deal. I'm going to go for Psychic, anticipating the X attacks, which I get. I can then double Psychic and knock out Scizor before it can do anything. But the Slowking now is going to do, oh my god, it got a crit. Well, that's way more damage than it would have done without it. I can knock out Salamence with Psychic, but Slowking Shadow Ball with the X attack does enough to knock me out. Oh god. This is now, I believe, the most I've lost against any one trainer, other than maybe like Bluno and Rosso at the very beginning of the run. But I think because I spread those out amongst the bunch of them, this is still a new record. Not one you want to have. Once again, we get the Slacking Slowking loadout. And this time I actually decide to go for Protect, because Slacking is going to have Truant the next turn. But of course, Evis decides to go for double X attack, meaning my Protect fails. Now I'm going to go for Psychic on Slowking, and it's going to skill swap. Okay, so now Slowking should be having a Truant turn. We weakened it a bit, and now we knocked out Slacking. Why didn't I just do that the turn before? Because I want a Pokemon with Truant. Now, by using Protect, like we did with Tropius a while back, we have turned this battle into a pseudo one-on-one. So I'm going to go for Protect, because this turn Slowking can attack. Unfortunately, Scizor decides to go for Swords Dance. That's the opposite of good, and now I don't even know what to do. So I'm just going to go for Psychic. I'm at level 88 now. Maybe I'll get a crit or something. But no. Baton Pass? Look at that look. I love that expression. First time I've watched the VOD back, but yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Tyranitar. Okay, this is the Shadow Pokemon. Interesting. So Sandstream now is going to be permanent. We're going to lose 1/16 of our health every turn. And for the record, Lefties is in this game, but takes like hours to get. So that's why I don't have Lefties. I'm going to go for Protect here. It goes for Rock Slide. Slowking goes for Shadow Ball. Like we talked about, pseudo one-on-one. But then Evis goes for Full Restore, and I get messed up. I go for Hidden Power on Tyranitar, and it does pretty decent damage. It goes for Rock Slide, and that does pretty decent damage. I mean, it should. It's +2 an attack. Here is where I mess up. I lost track of the Truant turns, and so I went for Hidden Power. You could see I was thinking about, wait, is it Truant? Because it healed. And so I lost track of whether that was a Truant turn or not. And so sadly, I'm hit by Shadow Ball. And so that combined with the Sandstorm means I've lost, but I think for the last time, because I think I've finally figured out the strategy to beating Evis. Of course, what two Pokemon he's going to send out is completely random, and we get Slacking and Salamence. Now, I could anticipate the X attacks, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to go for Protect. And once again, it seems like the game can read my mind, but thankfully, I'm so overleveled and so fast that we're able to outspeed and knock out the Salamence in one hit. Now out comes Scizor. I'm going to predict it's going for the X attack, and I was correct. You can see how happy I am because I really gambled. It was going to go for X attack there and then, and because it did, we were able to get off Psychic, and by keeping track of Truant turns, I knew that now Slacking was going to be in a Truant turn, so it wasn't going to attack anyway. I now go for Protect, and we get Bulk Up. It's all right, just stalling out the Truant turns. Machamp faints. Out comes Slowking. I go for Protect, and then it's going to go for Skill Swap, which is perfect. Now I'm going to knock out the Slacking, and it's going to be Truant Slowking and Tyranitar versus Espeon. Let's do this. So what do I want to do? I'm going to go for Protect here, and that's going to stall out the Shadow Ball. So we don't have to worry about Slowking pretty much anymore. I go for Hidden Power on Tyranitar. Does okay damage. Not great this time. I think Salamence actually wasn't used. That makes sense. But this time, there's no Baton Pass Swords Dance. Okay, that's fine. Now, the sand is getting annoying. Without Lefties, we're not recovering much. But the Slowking is also slowly being whittled down. I use my second Hidden Power versus Tyranitar. I need to knock it out. And it survives on like 1 or 2 HP. This is brutal because not only does that mean I'm going to get hit with Rock Slide, but by using Protect, I'm going to be losing a ton of HP due to Sandstorm. HP I don't have. And while I can knock out the Tyranitar, I was worried it would heal. Thankfully, it didn't. We're only going to have 28 HP. And it gets even worse. Not only do I actually have to protect this turn, and thankfully we're going to survive on just 13 HP, but Morning Sun isn't going to heal nearly as much because we're in a weather condition that isn't sun. It's brutal. Only 74 HP, now 59, and of course I need to protect again, so we're going to be down to 44. I Morning Sun up to 105, but the truth is, slowly but surely, oh no, a heal. So I guess that's better than, you know what, honestly, I think we got this. In fact, I think we have enough HP that I can just go for Psychic here. I get it with Shadow Ball. I actually kind of miscounted the Truant turns, but I think we might be able to knock out the Slowking. I'm just going to go for it. No! A second full restore! You know I'm going to live this, but I don't even... Wait, what? Oh my... No way. No way. That is the clutchest special defense drop I've ever seen. All right, guys. It took a while. It required a 10% chance. But with just a single Pokemon, we have beaten the hardest Pokemon game. 1v2. We didn't even need to go all the way to level 100. We beat a frickin' Tyranitar. I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm hoping you guys enjoyed. I am shocked how long this video is. Oh my god. I actually only thought this was going to be like a 30-minute video. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know, but the best thing you can do is like and just comment on the video, try and get it out there. If the video does well, I'll make more. If it doesn't, I won't, but I'm happy I made this one, and I'm going to make more videos, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.